I tell them all the time, I still ain't figured this out. I'm in it for the long run, I still ain't figured this out, man. She said she got the answers, I still ain't figured this out. He say he got the cures, I still ain't figured this out, man.
And welcome to another episode of the Crappy Awesome Podcast. It's your host, Kill C. Ray. This is actually our third time doing this. It's fifth time, starting it over 5 times. It happens. I had good jokes on the first one, though. It was a very smooth transition. If you're tuning into this anywhere podcasts are found, make sure you go over to PlatformCollection.com. You can see the video version at Platform Collection on Instagram or over at Platform Collection on YouTube. Make sure you visit our partners over at 2Mex TV. Yours truly and Parker Edison now have a show over there every other Wednesday called 2Mex Cinema, where we take a deep dive into the art and world of 2Mex. Super dope. One-of-a-kind show. And then we got guests on there that come through. But we're going to be breaking down everything from his videos to pictures on the internet, his Instagram posts. Man, it's going to be crazy. So go there, 2Mex Cinema at 2Mex TV. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Thank you guys for supporting the artists, the scene that we are part of. I got a dope guest on today. She goes by the name of 7Octoberz. She is an artist in her own right, as well as a staff and one of the integral members over at Platform Collection. So we're going to jump into her story, talk to her a little bit about her music. She's got a record out right now. In fact, I have the CD right here, and watch this. Bow. Oh, that wasn't clean, but there it is. That's it. And that is her. 7Octoberz.
What is up?
Is in the house, man. Thank
literally.
you for literally in the house. Yeah, you're one of the first guests actually in studio.
Yeah.
Which is such a nice thing for me.
Yeah. It's
because
back to like a little normal, a little bit. I guess.
Yeah. I haven't been able to do this in a while. Don't worry, we're COVID clean. We make sure that, especially at Platform Collection, we see each other a lot. So
yeah, we
got to be careful. But yeah, man, thank you for coming on the show. I'm trying to figure out where we should start with you. I kind of, this is your first time on the show. You've watched the show obviously before. Mm-hmm. I think one of the things we like to do with brand new people on the show is we love to like kind of start with the history, a little bit about where you come from, how you started in art. So let's dive into it. Even though some of these questions I may know the answer to.
Yeah.
We're going to pretend like we don't.
Okay.
For the sake of the audience, because we like them.
Exactly.
So where were you born?
I'm born and raised here in San Diego. So yeah, I'm from here. My parents are from Mexico. They moved here like super young. So we've been here all our lives. Me and my sisters.
Where were they at in Mexico?
It's kind of funny, like their little like love story that I like to tell. So they're both from Michoacan, but they're from different like little pueblos. My mom's from Guandacareo. It's like a handful name right there. Guandacareo, Michoacan.
What? Say that again.
Guandacareo.
Guandacareo.
Yeah. So shout out to my family over there. And then my dad is from Benjamillo, Michoacan.
Benjamillo, Michoacan.
So they're both from there, but it's funny because they actually met here in San Diego. He was actually her boss. They used to work in Jack in the Box. He was like a manager.
And so he made a move?
No, actually, my mom did a bet that she can go out with the manager or whatever. So she ended up going out with him, and they hit it off.
Wow, your mom is gangster.
So yeah, that's how they met, and then and then they had us. I'm a twin, so I'm fraternal. I'm not identical, so I have a twin sister, Cynthia.
Who's technically the older?
Well, supposedly the whole time they would always say it was her, but then the birth certificate said it was me. So I guess only a minute. It's only a minute.
Yeah,
so.
But it's
we were C-section babies.
Whatever's on paper.
Yeah,
that counts. So okay.
Yeah, and then my younger sister Melly, who's also part of the platform staff.
Right. Shout out to Melly.
Yeah, shout out to her.
Okay, so in the house, I mean, so there's when I listen to your art, there's a lot of references to your culture, to your family. It seems like those are big things for you. In your own house, did you feel like there was a lot of art around you, or because your sister Melly is creative as well? Mm-hmm. Like where does that side of you come from?
Yeah, like my family. It's weird. So we were raised by my grandma, my abuelita. So like I said, I reference a lot of my family and her specifically. Because she pretty much was like, we call her our second mom, which she passed away in October 7th, 2014. So that's why I go by 7Octoberz for those that don't know.
Yeah.
So she was kind of like an integral part in me, like falling in love with music and art and all that. Because we would watch like movies together, like Época de Oro, like Pedro Infante, Jorge Negrete, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But we would also watch like, because I'm like a 80s, I'm from 89, so technically I'm 80s, 90s. So we would watch like Mexican horror films too, actually. It was like a slasher era in Mexico too, that a lot of people don't know about. So
in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s. So that's how I became infatuated with like horror. That's where it comes from. But
through
then,
your grandma.
Yeah, and then even music, because Pedro Infante, like, and even not even Época de Oro, but like in the 80s, for those that might be familiarized, Pedro Fernandez, who was like a child's prodigy, he was like a mariachi.
Yeah.
I grew up watching his movies, and like he would sing and act. So that's where my love for music came from. That was like the first genre that I got introduced to, like banda, mariachi, all that stuff. And that's like where my love for music started. And it was funny because I was kind of like an introvert. So I was kind of like a loner as a little kid. My twin sister was like the popular one and the more like outgoing one. So
why do you think?
I don't know. Like it was always like that. Like since I was a little kid. So it's funny because when I was in like during recess, I still remember this, like in first grade.
She beat you up?
No. Okay. She'd be hanging out with her friends, and then I was just like walking around the school, like singing songs. I swear to God that I was like Pedrito Fernandez. So I would actually be making up. Now that I look back, I'm like I was making up songs in my head. I wasn't writing yet.
This is when you were just like a little kid.
Yeah, I was like 7 years old.
Oh wow!
So that's like when the music, and then music also was like really a big part in my house because my dad had like a stereo, like a boombox.
Yes.
And he listened to a little bit of everything. He listened to like Madonna, like 80s and stuff, like 92.5. But he also listened to like Temerario. So it's like it was like abundant, and like my mom would listen to like Cristian Castro, which he's like pop Mexican dude. And so we would have all that type of music, a different type of music, and then I got introduced by a family member to like gangster rap too. So all that stuff was kind of like abundant. So it was just like a little bit of everything. So that's what
why gangster rap in particular? Do you know?
She was just into it. She was like a chola. Yeah.
And that's how you kind of like was that like the first hip hop you were taking in, really?
The first time, I don't know what exact like track it was, but I know it was like, because 92.5 played a little bit of everything, even like 933.
Yes.
They played like Tupac and Biggie. So it had to be like a Tupac and Biggie song, probably. That's what I was like listening to. So yeah, it was still considered like street rap, gangster rap.
Wow. That's interesting. Okay, wait, but let's stay in the family. So, you're getting a little bit of art from grandma. I'm assuming though, like when you're first getting those first tastes of art, are you already in a place like, yo, I want to do that? Or are you just like, oh, this is something I like being around this. I like this. Like, were you already going like, I'm going to do that?
Yeah, so it's weird. So I wanted to a little bit. It was like a mix because we actually, like my grandma, we would have like little like talent shows for her, like me and my sisters. Like I remember that because and then we're like big on novelas too. So novelas have a lot of music too. So I think that's also where my influences come from.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I remember I would tell my grandma like, oh, I want to be like, Pedrito Fernandez or whatever. But then I think I kind of like grew up out of it a little bit. Like I would still like love music and everything. But then I wanted to do like, like the typical, like, oh, I want to be a cop, like a detective or something like that. Because I was also like infatuated with like true crime and stuff like that. So I never really I don't think I took it seriously. I think I said it, but I never really thought, oh, I can make a career out of it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you start to take in all this art. You're taking in the horror part. What about the horror part attracts you? Like why? I mean, because you were pretty young when you first got into it.
Yeah, I was like probably like 7 or something.
Yeah, so I mean, did that have to do with like? Because were you kind of like an emo kid? Like, were you like?
No, that's the thing. Yeah, I was like super like I was shy, but I wasn't like an emo person. I was still like happy and stuff like that. But
what were you shy about? You think?
I don't know. I always like got like anxiety. It's always like been a part of me, and my dad has it too. So I think that's like a big part of it. Like I would always get like care what people thought and stuff like that. Obviously, I kind of grew up out of it a little bit now, but I would just get nervous being in front of like a bunch of people. Like I didn't like being
overwhelmed by the the moment.
Yeah, like even like when you go around the circle, you're like, oh, introduce yourself. I hated that. Like,
oh wow, yeah. I'm trying to wonder if there was a part of me that was like that. Definitely, I think I think there was a part of my life where I spent where I was an extrovert.
Yeah.
But I think I was just masking. I found ways to be able to like control the situation. So that's what did it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely relate. As you're growing up, you have a twin. What role does your twin play? Because they always say there's this weird connection between twins. Did you have that?
I don't know. Yeah, a lot of people say that, like, oh, if something happens, like you feel it. Like, not really.
You're like, I don't even know where she's at.
Yeah, I mean, we were close. Like now, it's kind of harder because she like lives all the way in Ventura.
Yes,
and she has like my niece and nephew and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to like have that bond. Obviously, we'll always have that bond because we're like a tight knit family. Like I said, I always mention them in my music. So it was just like 5 of us. So, and my grandma, obviously. So like 7 of us.
But she's just moved on to like her own family.
But yeah, exactly. Right. So we still like obviously keep in touch. But yeah, when we were kids, I think like I always felt like actually like the middle child. Because like I said, we always thought that she was like the oldest one. So I felt like a middle child a little bit. Because she, like I said, she was like the more like popular one in high school. Obviously they knew us because we were twins and stuff like that. And then I started kind of growing out of my shell. And kind of like, I think finally, like once we got out of high school, I feel like we both got like our own identities. Because before it's like, oh, it's the twins,
so like you actually did have an identity like that where you were part of like a duo?
Yeah, I felt like that's why they always be like, oh, there's Gabby and Cynthia. Like it was always like a pair. Or when we go party, because we would go to parties together. Like I said, we were super close. But I feel like sometimes that's the only thing I do think my mom is like, when we were little kids, the doctor told her, she's like, just make sure you let them, dress however they want. Don't like, how there's parents that like dress them alike and shit.
Right.
And he was like, don't do that. Like, let them have their own personality.
Like they're not real people.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that helped too, like separate who we were. Cause she's also creative, but she does like arts and crafts. And she's like super talented at that.
Wow.
So we all have our little like creative side. And then, I don't even think I answered your question though about like the horror, like what infatuated me with that. So as a kid, I think one of the first movies I watched was like Child's Play, like Chucky. So I don't know if it was something about like fear, like overcoming it, like having like that power, like, oh, I'm not scared of this.
Yeah.
But also because I think it's one of the genres that like puts females like as a protagonist, which I always loved. And not a lot of movies do that. Like horror was one of the first ones. A lot of people don't see that. They say, oh, they objectify women and they murder women, blah, blah. And yeah, they have that. But that's why I consider it like close to hip hop. That's why I kind of pair them together because they both get like knocked down for like, saying it's violent, objectifies women, all that stuff. But they don't think about like the positives, which like I think horror, like they created like what's called the final girl, which is the woman that like defeats the villain and becomes like the actual like hero, not a victim. So I always love that. That's why I love it.
And you saw, I mean, obviously early on, I'm assuming you weren't like articulating it like that, right? Like you didn't
I think later on is like, okay, because I was like obsessed with like, like Friday the 13th. That was like the first like slasher I watched. And then,
were you okay? But when you were watching them, were you scared? Like, were you like, "Oh, this makes me scared"?
No, it's weird. Like, I never did, which is
you never had
weird.
that part, right?
No, I never had like nightmares or anything like that. Yeah,
I remember being scared.
Maybe
on
The Exorcist.
Friday the 13th.
The Exorcist for sure. That one.
Yeah,
yeah.
It hit too close to home, or what?
I don't know. Yeah, I think that was like the most realistic one.
Do you think that? Because that is interesting, right? People will wonder, like, why the dark. They'll just look at it as a dark thing, but you actually didn't ever really see it like that. Like you kind of saw the story of like someone overcoming like impossible odds and like That's so interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting because, I think a lot of people would just miss that if they would just take it in without knowing it in context.
Yeah. Like thinking, oh, they just obsessed with like murder or something.
Right. Well, yeah. And for you, like, you don't ever really, like, that doesn't really have any, it's almost, that's just part of like the stories possibly. But for you, it's actually about like I said, like overcoming.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I love gore too. You know, like
yeah,
it's cool because it's like even like just I think that's like the artist in me. Like I love like the special effects and stuff like that.
Right. See, but again, that's what I'm saying. Like,
but it's like the
already you're
part.
seeing it. Yeah, you're not seeing it as like just a normal thing. I wonder where that comes from. I wonder maybe you had when you were watching your grandma and you were noticing how she took it in. It probably it might have set a tone for you. You know.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, and it's weird because she was like super like Catholic too. So it's kind of weird that we would watch these movies together. I don't think like Friday the 13th stuff like that, like the American films, I don't think we ever watched them together. It was mostly like Mexican.
Right.
Like Mexican horror or like Época de Oro stuff.
What about so were your sisters like, did your sisters ever like pull you aside and go like, hey man, like this is like this scary, or like, why are you into this? Like,
no, I think we all grew up watching it, so we all like have a love for it. I think I just love it more than they do.
Yeah.
I think like I don't know, it just became like a part of who I am because my twin sister loves him too. Like she doesn't watch him as often anymore either because she has kids.
Yeah.
And then Melly loves him too. So I think it's all a part of us, but I feel like, I don't know, I just got maybe like, because it was like a thing that me and my grandma used to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So again, another part of it that's like so
like nostalgic.
Yeah, but it's so out of the ordinary why people normally take in.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess that's something we could talk about too. Like in your journey, because you've been able to like make some strides in that world as well as like the horror and cinemaphiles.
Yeah.
And have you found like the people that occupy those places, the people that are in those groups, have you found that indeed they really are maybe coming into it with like not stereotypical reasons, like most of them, like, because we would think again, like most people would just think like, oh, they just like blood and that's it. And that's all. But like you've spoken to other people and you've been around it more. Do you feel like there's just more passion that people don't actually see?
Yeah, I think, definitely. I think that it's like you said, it's something that not a lot of people like talk about. Like they just assume, oh, they're like love horror movies. So they're just, crazy or emo or whatever it may be. But yeah, I've spoken to other people that feel the same way. Like some people are like super special effects, like fans.
Yeah.
Like people
or
love
some
the Final
people
Girls.
are nostalgic.
Yeah.
Like they were.
They grew up watching it as kids too.
They had these, because I mean, there is obviously something exhilarating about a horror film. It's why they stand the test of time. That's why people forever, will be into them.
Yeah.
But I think it's because it taps into an emotion that, for the most of us, there is a way, it's toying with our own mortality, right? Because that's constantly the thing that's being broken
fear.
down, right? Yeah.
And fear. Yeah. I forgot. There's like a quote from Wes Craven, rest in peace to him, but one of my favorite like horror directors. But he said something about like fears, like I forgot the actual quote, but he talks about that pretty much like how he brings that to life on the screen. So a lot of people, I don't know, are able to overcome that and feel like brave or something like that. So
I mean, it's why I don't think there is a more prominent answer than that. When you ask people why they're into like horror films, it is like looking. It is a version. It's like a way of looking at death without having to experience it, and then you feel exhilarated after, like, oh, I survived that, but. Because your brain doesn't really know. Yeah. Right? Your brain watching the movie thinks whatever. If you're into the movie, then your brain's in the movie. Yeah. So if you survive the movie, it survives. It feels good. It releases serotonin. Yeah. That's why people laugh after they scream. You know what I mean? Like it's an involuntary thing because the serotonin just releases into their brain and there's nothing they can do about it. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so let's move forward with your story. So high school, what kind of kid were you?
I guess I was like, I I wasn't like the popular, but we were known because, like I said, when you're a twin, I feel like a lot of people know who you are. They're like, they just associate you.
It's good branding.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, and then I was like, I was part of like the Mecha Club. So that's where like my love for like history comes from too.
Yeah.
Even then, before that, like I always been obsessed with like history and like learning outside of school, outside of the textbooks and stuff like that. And I think hip hop also played a big role in that.
Yeah. Why did that turn on? That's not normal. That's not normally something kids want to continue to do.
I think hip hop, because like listening, I started. Then I found out like who like Immortal Technique was.
Yeah.
Jedi Mind Tricks, like all these different artists, like underground rappers. Like they talk a lot about like history, and then it makes me want to like go and learn.
Right.
So I feel like that's what I want to do with my music too.
Hip hop has done that for so many. I think it's done that for the world.
You know, like a lot of these rappers, like that's why I feel like they misjudge a lot of the time hip hop. So I take it like personally when people talk shit about it and like, dude, you don't even know. But I think that's where like my love of history came. And then, so I was part of like the Mecha Club. I was part of Yearbook. So I think that's where like my love for writing too, because I was really good at like in English class and stuff like that too. And then right before I hit high school is when I actually started writing. So like in middle school, like at age 13.
Yeah.
That's when I actually started writing like poetry, like slash like lyrics and stuff like that.
Okay, and so when you were doing that, what did you know? Were you mentally writing lyrics, or were you like, this is poetry, and then you were like later on like, oh, I was writing lyrics? Like, did you know you were writing lyrics?
Yeah, I know, because I actually have like, I still have like my first composition book that I wrote. It's like really some of them are really bad, but I kept it because obviously like it's like. Were
you listening to music while you were doing it? Like, were you like, no, I'm gonna make this a song?
Yeah, that's the crazy part. Like sometimes I would, but most of the time it wasn't. Like I would just get inspired, so I would write. Like the first one was kind of like I actually came out like a song and stuff like that, and then after that I would just write like long verses. But then I do have a few like songs there actually because I had like verse and then hook or like chorus.
Oh, okay.
So I knew I was doing it. I just didn't think anything of it. It was just like, for me, it was like a way to like release my emotions. Cause like I said, I was super like shy and like introverted, and I'm not like a emotional person.
Yeah.
I'm like I rarely cry or anything like that. So for me, like my music and my poetry was like a way to like put all that out. Like, and you know.
So where does that thing come from? Cause not being emotional, there's a reason for that, right? Like something had to have happened.
What I'm thinking is probably because I was like in first grade, I got bullied actually by this kid. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that also played a part. Like for me, like I had to be tough. You know?
What was the experience? Like how did they bully you?
He would just like, he would push me like in the sand and stuff like that. Like yes, they would like push me around, but he was like a big guy.
Yeah.
And I remember like telling the teacher, and the teacher didn't do shit. It was like a TA or whatever.
So you felt like victimized.
Yeah. And then I felt like, oh, I have to be like, you know, like strong and tough.
Because I can't let that happen again.
Yeah.
Because no one's got my back.
Exactly. And then my mom's like, why didn't you never tell me? But I felt like bad. Like I felt like it was like a burden, like me telling her. So I never told her.
Typical Mexican.
So I grew up, you know, I grew up telling her later.
Mexican family, yes. Yeah, that's so weird. We've talked about that over the years. Obviously, I come from a Mexican family, and like we've talked about like the guilt, like there's like this built-in guilt that we all have for some reason. It's just generations of like strong faith in religion and like, and so things like that where you feel like, oh, I don't want to be a burden to the family because obviously that idea has been in your head before, like, oh, it's possible to be a burden. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's interesting. So do you, as you're in high school, do you find, is that when it starts bubbling in your head? Like, I wonder if I could like make something out of this. Like,
yeah, I think so. So actually it's, so I'm going to probably like say like when I was in high school, it's probably like for like the young generations, probably like a long time ago, but it was like, I graduated in 2007 from high school. So back then we were still doing the senior exhibitions. I don't know if you guys did that at all. So it's where you had to do like pretty much a presentation before you graduated. And you had to present in front of like 4 people. I forgot who the people were. I think they were like a mix of counselors, teachers and stuff like that. Oh, okay. And it was pretty much, you were all like, you would all pass pretty much. Right. As long as you had the presentation.
It was just something just for you to complete.
Yeah. So the prompt every year it changed, but for my year it was like who you were, and who you want to become.
Yeah.
So I talked about, like my childhood and then who I was. Because I was like super into like when I graduated high school, it was like reggaeton was like the big thing. Like it was blowing up here in the US. So I was like all into like partying and stuff like that. But then it's also the era where like record labels were like, like blowing up to like Rockefeller.
Right.
All those Def Jam and all that
major
stuff.
label deals.
So I was like, for some reason I was obsessed with that. I don't know why. And I remember my presentation, I still have it. It's like I wanted to have my own record label.
Oh, wow.
And that it was going to be called G Records, I think. I was so stupid.
Oh, wow.
But I had it and then I like presented it and everything. Like, I love music, all this stuff.
Were you going to be like a Suge Knight?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was like, oh, cool. I'll do like my own label and stuff. And the people were like that. I think I had like a counselor and a teacher and whatever. And they were like, oh, that's really cool. Like, yeah, like we see your, like they saw my passion for it. And they're like, yeah, you. And I had gotten into San Diego State too. Like, so me and my twin sister both got in. So we were like surprised. I think it was a little bit easier too to get in universities.
As twins?
Like, I guess, because like we had high GPAs though. So we were kind of like nerds.
I wonder if there's a twin quota.
I don't know. Maybe.
Do they consider you guys half a
like
person?
Affirmative action type of thing?
You guys are only half an actual person?
Yeah. So that was cool. So people were like, oh, yeah, I see your passion for it. Like, I know you're going to do something. And I was like, okay. So,
okay. So, but I mean, I guess the big question would be, did you even know what that meant? Like, did you know, like, okay, how do I... Like, did you know how to? No,
I think I was just saying it just to like, have something. But then, because I ended up like, when I started San Diego State, because I went straight from high school. I didn't take a break. We just went right after like that fall.
Yeah.
And I majored in business because I was going to try to do the record label thing. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I was going to do it. Right. So,
right.
But then like, of course, reality hits. And like 2008, I think is when like everything went down, like the market and stuff like that. And we had a house, a condo. So my parents like both lost their jobs at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And they stopped making payments.
Yeah.
So they were like, so we had to like, find, so they ended up finding a job, but I felt bad. Again, the whole generational thing. Yeah. Like I felt like a burden because I had like FAFSA. So they were covering everything, but I wasn't really working a job. I was working as a student worker, but you only get like $200 a month.
Right.
So, and then like the business major was like an impacted major. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to have to switch. And that's when that came out about like the little childhood thing about like, oh, I want to be a detective and stuff like that. So I was like, criminal justice,
Yeah.
I was like, that's easier. So
you know what's really weird is that attracts so many like Latino and Hispanic people.
Yeah.
I mean, just actually like statistically it does.
I think it's like wanting to make a change, like make a difference type of thing. So I think that's how I saw it. Like, oh, I want to, change the world, like save lives and shit like that. So I ended up doing criminal justice. And the good thing is most of the class I already had taken because I was there for like 2 years already doing business.
Yeah.
Because it was going to take me forever. I was still in like the prereqs. Right. I wasn't even in the major.
Yeah, business was a long major.
Yeah, I think it's like 10. It was like 10 courses, I think, before you get into the major. I was like, what the fuck?
Wow.
So, yeah, and then I took an accounting class and it was a nightmare. I was like, nah, I'm good. So I ended up switching to criminal justice. Most of the classes worked towards that. And then I graduated within like I just had to do like one extra semester. I did 4 years in one semester.
Oh, okay.
And I graduated and I got lucky because I interned at the probation department at Ohio Street. It's not there anymore. I think it got demolished now.
Did it really?
In North Park, yeah.
Oh, wow.
I think it's like a new building or something. So I did there like for, I think it was like maybe like 2-3 months or something. And then one of my friends that was taking a criminal justice class, she's like, hey, they're hiring at this place. Like, I don't know if you heard of the bracelet that Lindsay Lohan had. I'm like, no, I never heard of it. It's like, yeah, it's called Scram, blah, blah. And I was like, oh. So they're hiring. They came to present in my class. I'm like, okay.
Right.
So I ended up applying with her, but they were only looking for one person.
Yeah.
And it was like literally the month before I graduated. It was in April of 2012. So I was like, okay, I applied. And then I got an interview and they liked me. And they actually gave me a shot because I had no
experience
whatsoever. Like shout out to my ex-boss or supervisor, Chris. He's the one that saw my potential. He was like, yeah, we want to offer you the position. I felt bad because my friend, the one that told me, obviously didn't get it.
Oh,
if she hadn't told me, I wouldn't have got it. So literally, like, I got hired literally right a month before I graduated. So I was one of the lucky ones because I had friends that graduated and they were working in retail for like a year to get, because criminal justice, you have to like, if you're trying to do probation
it's really hard.
Or sheriffs, it takes like a year or more because they have to do background checks. all that stuff.
Yeah, I've said it on this show before. I worked at juvenile hall for a little while, and worst job in the world.
Yeah,
but yeah, it seemed like it was very hard to get like hired, actually hired there
within that field. So it was kind of like
in San Diego specifically. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, so I did that. So that's how my what happened with as far as like business, and then I went to criminal justice, which was random.
Okay, so let's talk about now you're out of school, you're into the workforce, right? You're obviously feeling like I got to contribute to the family. You're helping out.
Yeah.
You're doing your part. As you're going through, like, because I guess at some point you went into work life, right? Like work life started happening, and then you started to like.
And it's crazy though, because while I was doing all that, I was still writing because I still have like notebooks and I have like dates and stuff like that. So I was still writing while I was in college.
Because that was just a thing for you to
exactly.
You did that anyways.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So when did you decide to like? Okay, I want to. Because you know what? I don't even know. I'm not sure. Yeah, we're going to get into that for sure. Because I met you through Hip Hop Wins, right? Shout out to Kali.
Yeah, shout out to him.
But I don't know what got you there to Hip Hop Wins. Like, I don't know what got you into the scene and what you were doing prior to that when it came to as far as the scene. Or was that your introduction to the scene?
No. So, okay. So, like I said, I was still writing and stuff like that. And then, like in 2014, so while I was still at my criminal justice job, I started like recording music. I think I got like a little shitty like interface and stuff like that, and I was recording. Actually, I think it was not even an interface; it was just on my laptop.
Okay.
And then I kind of reconnected with an old like childhood friend who was making music and stuff like that, and he kind of like put me onto like SoundCloud and all that stuff. And then I started recording again. And then
by yourself?
By myself. And then I would record at his spot too.
Yeah.
And then around
with an intention to put it out, or did you know yet?
Yeah, like in SoundCloud, I started just uploading because he's like, "Oh, it's free." I was like, "Okay, I'm just gonna put." And so it was like shitty ass quality. But I did that, and then like around 2017, I quit the criminal justice job. It was just becoming too much. Like that career is like it's really depleting. Right. And it was like, for me, creatively, it was like I wasn't even writing anymore either, like as much.
Yeah. Because it's just a completely different path.
Yeah, and it's like the energy there is like super negative too, because it's like all these people that are pissed off at the world. Right. So all that, I was taking that in, I think. And then I wasn't like writing as much anymore. So I was like, you know what? I need to get the fuck out of here. Like before, I go crazy. Because I was like depressed kind of too.
Oh, wow. So you made a conscious choice to like, I need to get out.
Yeah. So because I was like, I wouldn't go out. So when I first started working, I was like I said, I'm a big partier. So I would go out like with friends to the club.
What does a big partier mean? Were you a drinker?
Yeah, I was a drinker. Yeah. So I was like a big drinker, and we'll touch on that too. But I would go out and stuff like that. Yep. So I noticed that like maybe like 3 years in is when I started getting overwhelmed. And that's why I say like in the God of my destiny, where it's like it was like taking too much of me, and I decided to just quit. But it's funny because I went to Mexico, like Teotihuacan, for the first time, the pyramids, in 2017 in January. And literally when I got back, I don't know, like I said, like I don't know if my ancestors or some shit were like telling me something.
Yeah, it's a powerful place,
right? When I went back, I was like there at work, and then I had this feeling like, man, I don't feel like I should be here. Like I just felt like out of place.
Oh, geez.
Like something, because I already had like what's called like a breakdown in 2015, where I had told my boss like, you know what, I'm going to quit, and he's like, nah, we'll do this and that, and I stayed. So I gave it 2 more years, and it still didn't change.
Oh, wow. 2 more years past like your low point.
Yeah. I even told my parents, I was like, you know what? Like, I need to get the fuck out. But they were like, no, like, the typical like Mexican family where they're like, oh, it pays
safe.
well.
You got a job.
Exactly. Yeah, it pays well and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to stay. And then, 2 years. And then January, I was like, when I came back from Mexico, I was like, nah, I'm fucking done with this shit. Like, we were super understaffed. Like, everybody was like overworked. I'm like, I'm done.
Oh, geez.
So I quit. Literally no backup. I just had like savings. Good thing I had savings, and my family, obviously.
Yeah.
And I quit, and now like I have like I work in like insurance, nothing to do with fucking like criminal justice.
Sure.
And like I love my boss because he actually supports my art, which is it's kind of weird because my other boss didn't like that shit. Like the actual owner of the company hated that.
Yeah, because I mean, who wants to like? There's not a lot of people that want to like pay you to
try to do something else.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why like shout out to my current boss. She's awesome. But so pretty much I ended up in 2017 I quit. I started making music again, putting it out. I think I put a few on SoundCloud still.
Yes.
And then I met some guy who was not into, but he knew a little bit about the hip hop scene too. And then my childhood friend knew about it too.
Yeah.
So they had told me about BattleBot.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of like my introduction. Art. Yeah. Yep. So I was like, what the fuck, BattleBot? And I was like, what is it? He's like, oh, it's like, is this dope? Like, they have like B-boys, they have freestyle and all this. I'm like, what the fuck? Like there's a hip hop scene in San Diego. I was like super like surprised.
Oh, wow.
So we went to the Casbah where it took place.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing like, I think it was like Rick Scales versus like Nubia and shit.
Oh, I remember that.
That shit was like fucking epic. I was like, what the fuck? How did I not know about this? Because like I said, I would go to bars and clubs, but I never actually went to like a live like show. Like I would go to concerts.
Yeah.
But not like local artists, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like blown away, like the b-boying and all that too.
I mean, that's a cool place to be.
And the beat set and too, because it was like, damn, like, so then I kind of started following pages on Instagram. And I came across, I forgot how I came across Hip Hop Wits, but somehow I got introduced to that page. And the first Hip Hop Wits I went to was actually a De La Flow show.
Oh, right on. Shout out to Carlo.
Yeah, shout out to him, El Árabe or Carlo.
Which, so De La Flow was our night where we concentrated on Spanish hip-hop and Spanish-tinged hip-hop. So at Hip Hop Wins. Again, shout out to Kali for that.
So that was dope. So
that was the first one you went?
It was the first one I went to.
Oh, wow. So that was perfect for you.
Yeah, which is weird. Yeah, and I was like, oh, shit, there's like Spanish rap too. But it was kind of like, it was not as popular, I guess. When I went, at least, I think it was like on a weekday, I want to say.
I think it had just started.
Yeah, it had just started. It was like, I want to say 2018, early 2018 or to the late 2017. And then Five Space, shout out to Eric from Five Space, the record shop. He would throw like beat sets too. I think it was 2018 or late 2017.
Okay, wait. So when you went to Hip Hop Wins, was that the first time you kind of started seeing like, oh, there is a scene?
Yeah, like BattleBot, that De La Flow show, and then like the beat sets. Like, and then I started seeing like the same people, frequenting. So you start seeing it.
Yeah.
And I kind of like, I'm like a nerd again. So like, I like to like know, okay, like this person, I seen him here, like that means they're connected.
So you were all in at that point.
Yeah. And I just like, I became like infatuated with it. And then right after that, I got introduced by my childhood friend to Black Expression in Logan. Shout out to Black Expression. So him and my sister kind of were like, oh, because they know that I do poetry and all this stuff, and they're like, you should do a piece, blah blah blah. And like I said, I'm shy, so I didn't really want to do it. Like I've done that like in classes, like Chicano studies classes that I had to do like a poem and stuff like that. I've done that before. There was a class in like public speaking, but I never did it like for the fun of it. So then they finally convinced me, and I go. It was like June of 2018. I go and I got like great feedback. Like really supportive crowd there. That's what I love about them.
What did you do?
I performed like one of my spoken word like poems.
Okay.
I forgot. I think it was called 3, which is actually it was the poem 3 or Third Eye, which is on My God of My Destiny.
Got you.
So then I did that, and then I keep coming back. Actually, like even though I was shy, I'd get nervous going up there, but I would just keep going.
Yeah. What made you decide to go up?
My like I said, my sister and my friend were like, just do it. And then she tried to like, Melly was like, oh, it's like they're really supportive, because she had gone to one of them and I didn't go with her. And she's like, yeah, like they're really supportive. Like,
so Melly sold you.
So so Melly was like, just do it. And I was like, fuck. I was like, okay, I'll do it. So I did it. And then I just love like everybody's like really supportive, like, like cheering you on. Which it gives you like, I don't know, like more energy and stuff like that. So I just kept going after that. And then I started going to like hip hop. Well, actually, not Hip Hop Wits. I think I want to say somehow when I was following the Hip Hop Wits page, because I only went to one show, I think in 2018, that De La Flow show.
Yeah.
I think I want to say Yazi. Shout out to Yazi. They were promoting her SD Music Room. And this was because I started the blog in December of 2018. And then in March, I want to say like around March, I went to the first like meeting, the SD Music Room.
Right.
And that's where I started meeting more people.
Which is a group in San Diego that was started by Yazzie. Shout out to Yazzie. Follow The Real Yazzie. Is it The Real Yazzie, right?
Yeah.
On Instagram.
Yeah.
But she started it's basically a support group for artists at all levels it doesn't charge anything. It's literally just a support group where artists would come together. So you got introduced even more indoctrinated into the scene and how things, because basically all the people who go to SD Music Room are people who are like nerding out on the hip hop scene, right?
Yeah,
like,
and I was still
really
going to like, exactly. I was still going to like battle bots. Like I went maybe to a total like of 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Like in 2018. So I was still kind of getting to know like people and stuff like that. I wasn't really like introducing myself that much until I started the blog. So the blog Nightmare on Sedgwick Avenue.
Yep.
I started in 2018 in December, and then I started doing like local reviews. I want to say like in February.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, I heard about Yazzie's SD Music Room. I went and I met more people. And then that's when I started actually like going to the Hip Hop Wets show. And actually I went to a show until 2. It was like Ito Aldivino, I think is his name. Like all these like underground Jamal Gazol, all these underground New York rappers until 2. That was like my first show I ever went alone. And shout out to like Small Zuno.
What made you pick that?
Because of Yazzie. Like I think somebody was promoting it, and then Yazzie was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go." And then I got introduced to like Small Zuno because I had reviewed his album. So Small Zuno and his brother Sick Rick, shout out to them. They were gonna go, and I was like, I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna go solo. Do you guys want to keep me company? And like they were there like with me, so I didn't feel like alone.
And so you met them through SD Music Room.
So it's weird. So, okay, so Small Zuno had gone to like the first SD Music Room meeting. I went to like maybe the second or third or something.
Yeah.
I didn't actually meet him. I had just he came up on my Instagram somehow, and I like saw that he had dropped an album. So I reviewed it. And then he like, thanked me and everything via IG, like DMs. And then we kind of like started talking that way. And we actually finally, I want to say we met in person at the show, like for the first time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I got introduced to like, started going to shows by myself. Because before I was like, I didn't want to go alone. Because sometimes Melly would go with me, but sometimes she just didn't want to go. So I was like, man, I got to start going by myself. And then I did like, I think in March, I did like business cards. And I started going up to people.
I mean, it's so...
It's just weird how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely get the wanting to know all the parts. I'm the same way. I know a lot of people are like that. But the going to shows by yourself, that takes a lot, right? Like it takes a lot to go out there. And
especially because I'm shy. Like I don't know how I did it.
Driving up to the show. You're having to wait to get out of the car. You're walking up to the thing by yourself.
Yeah.
And then just kind of hoping the night goes fine, right? What were you looking? I mean, when you look back now at it, what were you looking for? Like, what was it that, like, why go?
I don't know. I think I was just like hip hop. Like I love it so much that I was like, I need to be a part of this.
And
like,
this was
community.
happening.
And I was like, the only way to do it is to like just immerse myself in it.
And just get out there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely correct.
And like eventually people are going to know who I am, Like, I mean, I didn't have that in mind though. Like that wasn't my goal. It's like, oh, everybody's going to know me. Like, no, my thing was just like, I'm just doing it for the love of it.
Yeah.
And people like,
I just want to be a part of this.
Exactly. Yeah. Like any way I can like contribute to the culture. Okay.
And so then you're going now, you're starting to meet people. You said you made business cards.
Yeah.
Good move. You started passing them out.
Yeah.
And that was helping promote simultaneously the blog, right?
Exactly.
Because that was the other thing is you were coming into this.
Not as an artist. Yeah.
Right. Like you came in as more of a journalist, right? But you were also coming into this with the challenge of trying to make it make sense, right? Like, because nobody had ever seen anything like that before in San Diego scene. Like, nobody had come and said, like, hey, I'm also going to have this horror element and, movie element to what I do. And I'm going to try to bring them together, right? And at that point, there was obviously no prototype on how to do it. You were kind of just
going with the flow. Yeah.
Right, just going with the flow. And then, so I'm assuming as you started to review, interview cover the scene. It started to like expand your network.
Yeah, and it's funny because so like I said, again comes like the shy part. When I started doing like the reviews, I never really posted pictures of myself because again, I wanted it to be about the, the reviews, the actual blog, not about myself.
Yeah.
So it was funny because I remember one guy, like I think I want to say I reviewed his album or something, and there was a show in Imperial Beach or something. I was going to go, but for some reason I didn't end up going. And it's funny because he messaged me the next morning. He's like, hey, it was funny because I went up to this girl and I was like, are you 7Octoberz? She was like, no, it's not me. So people were already like looking for me, like who I was.
Okay, but wait. Let's examine that a little bit though. So you have this thing because it's just occurring to me that you said part of what got you in to pursuing this more was that Night Out Black expression when you performed live.
Yeah.
Right. And then, but performing live is like a topic I definitely want to talk to you about because it's one of those things where you've been pretty vocal about the idea that you don't know if you want to perform live.
Yeah.
Like, right. It's a part of that you're still figuring out. I mean, it seems to me if it was up to you, you just would never show your face and you would just put out art.
Yeah.
But why though? Right? Why when we're in this culture, right? That's rushing to the camera.
Yeah.
Why when we're in this culture that, especially females, in this culture have been able to find like these footholds by pushing their face forward and being more out in the limelight. You're like, I don't want to be out in the limelight. I want to be hidden away. Where do you feel like, because here's the elephant in the room, right? Is that just part of that guilt, or is that something that's just nerves? Or because obviously it's not like you didn't know, okay, going in front of this audience is something I have to do. Like I'm going to have to do this. And you did it. Yeah. And it went successful. But it's not like you ran away from that. Like, man, I got to do that again. You were like, all right, got that done. Yeah. So like, what is that? What is it?
I don't know. Like, I feel like I've never been like the person that's like all about me.
Sure.
I always like bringing light to like other people. Like I always like being in the background type of shit. And it's funny because I was just talking about that with Melly because there was like they say that the R&B artists are like it's the new era of like the introverted artists, like Black and like her and Bryson Tiller. If you notice, all those artists never showed their face. They just did it because they had to.
Right. Right.
And I like what her said, and I think I can identify with what she said. She said she wanted to make it about her music and the art, not about herself. So I feel like that's where I come from. Like, first of all, I don't like being like, oh, like the center of attention type of person,
right?
And then two,
does that have to do with the early years of your upbringing where you were shy and picked on and it was easier if you weren't in the public eye?
Maybe like low-key. Yeah, maybe like low-key that kind of like in the back of my head.
So is that something that you now as an adult are challenged with? Like, maybe I need to try to get over that? Like, or are you still like, I mean, has that, I actually haven't talked to you about it in quite some time. Yeah. But is that something that has changed? How are you looking at it now?
Yeah, I mean, because like you mentioned, I think when we were first starting like Platform, when we were talking about like, building shows and stuff like that, like, oh, showing your faces more and stuff like that. So I feel like I'm slowly moving towards that now because like, Nightmare Cinema, my face is on there. Now my podcast is also web camera and stuff like that. And then
you're on a podcast right now.
Yeah, exactly. I'm doing more interviews too. Like I was.
You've had quite a few, recently.
And then I've been like, I think I had an interview with Jeffy Obvious where he actually brought up that question about me performing, and I've been talking to like Millie about it too. And
what did you say?
I said I was like, yeah, I feel like I need to start doing that. Because so I feel like it kind of touched me a little bit when Pause One was like talking about being an MC, master ceremonies. Sure. Because it's like not something that's given, it's earned. Right. So I was like, man, maybe like because a lot of people, especially if you're like myself, like a hip hop fan of the culture, we all know all these artists, like the way they got their fan and everything is actually going out, and performing. Yeah. And that's part of it. And I feel like some people might think like, oh, maybe she's not like. she's kind of like fake or like not a full artist because she hasn't performed live. And I feel like maybe that's also like a part of why I'm not getting like at least that support part on certain like places, which I feel like that might be it. Where they're like, oh, she's putting out music, but that's great and all, but like, does she perform? You know?
Right.
And then COVID hit, obviously. So it actually kind of worked in my benefit a little bit because it gave me a little bit time
right now,
to like grow into it, like get ready. But that's one thing, I was going to talk to you about that. I feel like I would probably have to end up doing that, like performing.
Do you like that? I mean, you're saying it right now. Do you, when as it's coming out of your mouth?
Yeah.
Is the feeling like in your heart and your stomach? Does it get like tight? Are you like?
Obviously, shit. Like nerves and shit. But I feel like I have like I want to do it too. Just
it's a personal challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like I feel like I can do it because I've done the spoken word. Now it's just like actually like, performing, like actually rapping. Yeah. And not like having my notebook in front of me,
Right.
But I know I can do it.
Are you okay? So here's something that's I've talked to a lot of people about this. Right, there are certain artists that because they make like a hit early on or they gain some sort of popularity, they may be thrown into the mix of like the entertainment world too early. So. And then what ends up happening is we all kind of watch them develop. Yeah. Right. And nobody's ever fair. Right. We're never fair. Nobody ever thinks like, hey, you're watching this kid develop right in front of you. Of course, he's going to get better. Of course, they're going to change their minds on things. They're going to grow. Right. There's not a lot. There hasn't always been a lot of room for that. Yeah. In hip hop, people always want like this polished, done thing. Right. Like Pa said, like, right. That's something that's been earned and scratched. But the part was like when pause came up, that wasn't being documented, right? Like you weren't documenting any of the times where you said like, I'm right from the start. I was already throwing it out to the world. Like, yo, here's how I sound right now. And you're like, it doesn't sound good, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But it doesn't matter. There's something I have to get out, right? Like you feel a need to get it out. Yeah. I think that there's something to be said about that because I mean, there's no turning back time, right? Like time has changed. Yeah. The narrative of somebody growing into something better or more polished is an interesting thing. It's an interesting story. Yeah. Right. But I also have to imagine I didn't have to do that. So I also have to imagine that it can be severely nerve-wracking too, because everybody's judging. Yeah. Right. Because you're almost asking them to, right? You're like, I'm developing. Yeah. And so people are like, really? Let's see if she sucks. Let's see if she's good. Let's see if like, right. Yeah. Is that something that worries you? Like, do you look at that and go like, man, I don't want to deal. Like, do I want to deal with, because right now, for the most part, and I know this varies and there could be, levels to this, but for the most part, at least from my observation, you've been kind of welcomed with open arms. Yes. Yeah. More so in the scene. But as you know, as you grow as an artist, you kind of get out of the nest in the safety area and you start going into these areas where people may not know the narrative. They may not know the story and it can be brutal. Yes. Right. Yeah. Are those things that does that weigh heavy on your mind, or have you accepted like that's probably just going to be part of it? Or
yeah, I think it doesn't like affect me in any way. Like I'm just going with the flow type of thing. Like, awesome. I don't want to like overthink. Yeah, all that stuff. But yeah, I know that's been in the back of my head. Like, am I going to perform? And I do want to do it. Not just because like, oh, everybody might be expecting me to do it. Yeah. I feel like you said it's like for me personally, like I know I can do it type of thing. Like to prove to myself I can. Yeah. Okay. So now that you're on this journey, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I always think that there's something to be said too about coming on shows like this as well and then saying what you're saying. Yeah. Right? Because now this is like out there for the world. Yeah, it's documented. Yeah, yeah. And there's people that are like, okay. There's people listening right now that are going like, let me watch this. Let me see what's going to happen. Like she's saying these things are going to happen. Let's see what's going to happen. Yeah. Do you feel like when you start moving forward, because now that you're doing this, how do you feel like you get better at this? Like, how do you
do you have a plan in your mind? Like, this is how I'm going to just keep getting better.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still going to be making music regardless, even if like it's not like my main career goal. I think like, just like keep like writing, like you said, like keep, what I want to do is kind of like for the next record that I put out is like, I want to record and just like freestyle, like when I'm recording myself instead of writing.
Right.
Because I want to work on like my cadence and my flow and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like that. And just like, I think when you have a craft, you have to work at it. So I think I had asked you about like the instrumentals and stuff like that. Cause I want to start like, I even bought me like a little like machine with a mic to start like performing in front of myself.
Awesome.
Cause I'm like, for me, I'm like a huge perfectionist.
Yeah.
Which is, I think it's a good thing from what I see. Cause, and I don't like to give up type of thing. So I think that helps me. So I feel like I would, that would help me become a better performer as well. Like I'm just going to keep going at it until I get better. And like I said, people are going to be on the journey to like watch me grow.
Yeah. And so, man, I think it's super dope. I think if you are going to pursue this, you're checking all the boxes. Shout out to Hip Hop Eddie. Hip Hop Eddie's here. You're checking all the boxes, man. Like it's very hard it wouldn't be right for me, who's been doing a hip hop based show forever, to not ask you those questions, right?
Yeah.
Like, is this something that you really care about? Is it something that you really want to do? And I mean, I don't think that there is like too many traditionalists that would find issue with any of your answers, Like, I think it is kind of the thing that you want. You would hope if you love this, like I love this, that anybody wanting to be a part of it would be respectful of it and want to love it as well, and that's cool. And then the part of you being documented doing it, that's the world. That's not hip hop. Like hip hop isn't documenting new people starting. The world's documenting their own lives.
That's true.
And it's a way of communication now. It's a normal way to communicate. And if you want to connect with an audience who's being inundated by information, you have to be in there somewhere. Right.
Exactly.
And so, I mean, I know you put out a lot of content. Yeah. That's one of the things that you have not shied away from at all. And I think it's super dope to, like, I've been watching your breakdowns. Like you do music breakdowns. Yeah, lyrical breakdowns from the album, and it's been really cool to watch those. I think you're giving people like an insight that they don't have. Yeah. So this is what I'm interested in seeing as I watch your career, right? And as somebody who I nerd out on watching people's careers. Like I like to watch trajectories. Yeah. I like to see and predict how things might happen. I think you're going to reach a point where the amount of hard work you just put in will negate the idea of whether is she like super polished yet. I don't think people are going to give a fuck because at a certain point you're going to have put out so much content, because this is usually what happens, right? Usually what happens or what used to happen, because this is not usual anymore. I think it has changed for sure. But what used to happen was you would get to a certain point musically and then put stuff out, right? Yeah. But you can't survive like that nowadays, right? Like you almost have to get in the race as soon as possible.
You have to put content out.
Right. Yeah. And then hope that people are down to grow with you. And if they do, you have lifelong fans. So I don't think there's a negative to it, honestly. Yeah. Like, I don't think there's a negative to it. I've watched, it's something at Platform Collection that we like doing. We like showing people go through their character arc. You know what I mean? Like what's going to happen to this person? Like, how are they going to end up? What are they going to do? Are they going to change? Next time you're on Crappy Awesome, is it going to be, what are you going to be talking about? Are you going to be here getting ready to go out on tours? There's so much that could happen. Yeah. And I think if we throw away the beginnings of people's careers because we're like, oh, they're not ready yet, then we miss out on like some beautiful shit. That's true. Right. And then we also miss out on what I think that you're doing is you're really showing people how you can do this, like how it's possible hey, here's where I'm at. I'm super open where I'm at musically. I'm where I'm at as an artist and where I'm at as a performer. But you're going to hear the story. Like, just wherever I'm at doesn't mean that you're not going to hear the story. You're going to hear the story.
Exactly.
And I think that is what young artists should do. And I think new artists. Let's talk a little bit about your project that's out right now. Okay. Let people know the name. It's
From Xibalba to Aztlán.
Okay, so talk to us about the name of that.
So the title, I'm like I said, big like history and especially like Mexican history, like my culture. So from Xibalba, so Xibalba, it's like a mythological like Mayan underworld, like hell. And then Aztlán, it's weird because there's two definitions for it.
Yeah.
So one is like where Mexico was or wanted to expand and stuff like that, like, you know, part of the California and stuff like that in Mexico itself. But then it's also considered like like another mythological, like an Aztec paradise.
Yeah.
Like where we would have wanted like to have, you know, Mexico be and how it would have been if you know, the Aztecs continued to reign and stuff like that. So for me, I always, if you follow like my last project, Out of My Destiny, I always like doing like from negative to positive.
Yeah.
So from Xibalba, meaning like from hell to paradise.
Because that coincides with how you feel about yourself, right? Like you're you're evolving into this thing that you want to be, right? Like like the better version of you is what you keep trying to make.
Yeah, and I'm like obsessed with like the whole, you know, like positive thinking, positive energy, like the whole, you know, the secret where like if you think positive things happen and all that stuff. So I try to put that as well in the projects. So that's why From Xibalba to Aztlán, that's why I named it that. So it's going, if you listen to like, that's why I intentionally put the tracks in that order.
Yes.
Because it's kind of like a story. So it's like, it starts from kind of like a negative part of our history. And then it ends with like a positive note with like the Si Se Puede, you know, chant.
Right.
And I hope that that's what people take away from it. And the whole lyrical breakdown, I did it because like, I know a lot of artists that are like artsy, you know, and they're like, oh, I want the people to interpret it the way they want to and stuff like that. And I'm cool with that as well. But for me, like, again, I take my art seriously and I love it. I want people to like see into my mind and see what inspired each track.
Right. The intention behind it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And so on this project, you talk heavily about cultural differences, primarily in like the Latino and Chicano communities.
Yes.
On the next project, like how much do you want to extend that conversation, and how much will we see in the next project, or will it be a complete departure from that? Like what can we expect musically? Because like, again, we're watching you develop, right?
Yeah.
We're watching you find sounds and find voices. Like you said, you're working on cadences and all these really dope things. Like what can we expect moving forward from you?
So I want to do like a different, like at the end, like for me, I want to make world music. Cause like I mentioned, like for the people listening from the beginning, I have all these different like types of genres that I was introduced to as a kid, you know, like mariachi, all that stuff. So every project, and I had mentioned this to you, like I wanted to be different than the last. So like God of My Destiny was kind of like introduction to me. Like it's a little bit about who I am and like the poetry side of me. This one From Xibalba to Aztlán is about my culture, but it's still about me. You know, I still put like stuff about myself.
Right. You're telling your culture through your story.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
but you're also recognizing, at least correct me if I'm wrong, I feel like you recognized in this record, that your story is such a story that many people have gone through this, like these struggles.
That's relatable.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah. And then me like a
almost
movie
magically fan. So. Though,
yeah.
Right. Like you've had the bully experience. You've had the loner experience. You've had the family loss. You've had like really like very movie-esque, you know?
Yeah. So I feel like for me, like, again, being a movie fan, that also plays a part in how I create the projects. So I was telling, I forgot who I might have been telling you, but if you notice, like on God of My Destiny, like the back cover was a pyramid. So I didn't even intentionally think about it, but I was like, that was kind of like a foreshadow From Xibalba to Aztlán. If you look at the back cover,
right?
And then From Xibalba to Aztlán, if you look at the back cover, here I'll show it here, but it's right there.
Yeah,
it's probably like kind of blurry, but
I'll bring it up.
The back of From Xibalba to Aztlán is actually Popocatépetl and Itza. It's like a longer name, I can't pronounce it, but it's a volcano, two volcanoes in Puebla. I actually been there before. It's like a love story, kind of like Romeo and Juliet.
Uh-huh.
I always thought it was like Montezuma and Malinche, but it's not. It's actually Itza and Popocatépetl in that image. And he's like holding her because he was like an Aztec warrior and she was like a princess. And I think she died of sadness, I think, or something like that along those lines, because she thought he had died at war. He came back and, she was dead. So it's like a love story. So for me, that's kind of foreshadowing the next project, which is going to be like a love EP. So I have like the sensitive side to myself too, besides like the horror. So I'm like, like a fun fact about me, like I love romantic comedy. So the next EP is going to be like way different than this last one. So every project I wanted to kind of me evolving as an artist, but also like showing the different sides of me because I'm a Gemini.
Yeah.
So that kind of shows like my duality too, as well.
Do you feel like hip hop is always going to be a route, or do you even see yourself like moving away from that at some point?
I want to do like all genres, honestly. Yeah. Like I still keep the spoken word because I feel like that's what makes me unique a little bit from everyone.
That was kind of your intro into the world, right?
Exactly. So
do you feel like, let me ask you this, because I'm not a spoken word artist. As a spoken word artist, do you feel like what's like the differences between being a spoken word artist and then like rapping? Do you feel like you're able to get more out when you're spoken word?
Yeah, I like it because I wouldn't consider like myself like a super spoken word because I've seen people that are like freaking awesome at it. Yeah. Like they know it by heart and everything. Shout out to all those people. But what I love about it is like the emotion that you hear in the people's tone, and then you can actually hear what they're saying. Because with rap, that's the only thing I don't like about it sometimes. Because you can be at a show and it can be like the best rap you've ever heard, but sometimes like the distortion of the sound or whatever, you can't even really hear what they're saying. Yeah. So that's what I love about spoken word, that you can actually, because for me, I'm like a big lyrics fan. Like, a lot of the artists I like, it's like I want to hear what they're saying. Yeah. So that's what I love about like the spoken word part of it.
That's awesome.
And then like I still want to do like, I'll eventually still keep doing like hip hop or rap. But I want to do like venture into like, for the next one is going to be more like rap, like R&B, because I'm like a huge R&B fan too, and like maybe a little bit like Latin R&B. Because I'm like obsessed with that sound.
Are you gonna sing?
I want to do like more melodic stuff. Yeah, I want to. So I want to try to play around with that.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and then me and my friend Jose Chavez, shout out to him. He was in my last project, God of My Destiny. Me and him have like kind of like a duo that we created, Chicano Legends. Yeah. So I might do like a solo project next year. At least that's my goal for now. It's like having a solo, the R&B one. Yep. And then having one with him, which is also kind of like acoustic, because he plays acoustic guitar. And then both of us kind of like singing. So, because he sings, he has a better voice than I do. Oh wow! But that would be like the second album if I put two projects out.
That's very challenging, huh? Like you're really going to try to tap into different parts of yourself. But you know what? Here's the thing. This is why I respect that, right? Because before you started talking about this, you were talking about like I have a lot of work to do. Mm-hmm. There probably isn't a better way to do that than to just dive in. Yourself, and see where you're at. It's going to be an interesting journey. Do you feel like doing the other stuff, because that's the other thing we haven't really tapped into that yet, is that you're a host on multiple shows. Mm-hmm. Are you pursuing that part of your career as well? Do you like sitting and talking with people? Do you like interviewing? Like, is that a part you like?
Yeah, I love that as well. So like for me, like you said, like my work ethic, I think it speaks for itself. Like like the content I've been putting, I just try to get content from everything. Like I said, like the lyrical breakdown, I was like, there's ways I can like even promote this more. Yeah. So I think of just different ways of like making more content that way. Yeah. From one piece, making all this content, So for me, like you said, I do like the the podcast and then the Nightmare Cinema with PlatformCollection. Yep. So all that stuff, I still want to grow into that. Like I think I want to say like I've mastered like multitasking.
Yes, for sure.
I've always been good at that.
You're probably the best multitasker in the group.
Yeah, I think it's because like I'm bilingual. I think that I always clown about that with like people that speak Spanish and English. But I feel like that helps. Like
because your brain is being trained.
Exactly. More. So I kind of thrive in that. Like even though it's stressful sometimes, like I still thrive in it. So I still want to do other stuff because like for me, music actually comes easy. like me songwriting. I know other people that like take like days,
right,
take weeks or months to write a song.
Yeah, and I was in the studio with you.
I'm pretty like it just
on the spot
because I've been doing it for so long. It's just like quick.
Right, because you have books and books of
I have like
poetry,
old stuff. Exactly.
Yeah. So you're able to pull even from like rhyming words and
or even just creating new stuff. Like you said, we work together in the studio, so I'm like pretty quick now. So that like if I do 2 projects, that for me that's nothing. If I do like 7 tracks or something, so
you don't feel like overwhelmed by that.
Exactly. You're like, and then like doing the podcast, like I love doing it, so I just kind of like schedule things, and then on top of that, I have my 9 to 5 too. I don't know how I do it, but I think it's just being organized, and then my work ethic, like taking it like a real career, because obviously I'm not getting paid for it yet. Yeah. But I'm treating it like, okay, this was my day job. Like, this is how I would do it. Yeah. So
there is no other way.
Yeah. And I still want to do other things. Like I mentioned to you, like I want to do like the film thing, TV show. Like that's my goal for next year. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. But
start developing film.
Yeah. Doing that and like.
Because you have a short film idea as well.
Yes. That's like short TV show. Yeah. Like anthology film and all that stuff. So I do want to do other things, and I'm still going to continue to like get better in each. Cause I want to like I think we talked about this where you said you mastered like your different crafts and then you moved on to the next. Yep. So I kind of want to do the same thing. Yeah. Cause I feel like, I think like the podcasting and the blog and all that stuff, I feel like I've mastered that part.
Right. You have it down. Now it's like you're already starting to like experiment with it even more now. Like
exactly.
I feel like that's a sweet spot when you know how to do all the stuff. Yeah. Is when you really start to like get open. You know what I mean? Exactly. Like you really start to like, oh, okay, I can use this with this. And, you know, all the mechanics of that part, that's the learning curve. And I think it's the biggest part that most people shy away from, right? Because it's like, oh, I got to learn something new. Where I think you definitely have that bug. I mean, I've always had it of where it's not like something I have to do, but it is. Like I have to like figure it out, or I'll get frustrated with the idea of not figuring it out. So that way overpowers the actual work part.
That's true.
Where it doesn't feel like work. I feel like I'm trying to get to that next level, whatever it is, you know?
Yeah, I'm always trying to learn new things. Like, even if I don't know how to do it, like, I'm pretty, like, tech savvy.
Yes.
So, like, I'll figure it out.
Yes, you are.
I'll just, like, figure it out.
Yeah, you're one of the go-to people for OBS in the city. So, man, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me.
Super proud of you. Super, super proud of you. I think you're doing an amazing job. I think the entire team is proud of you.
Thank you.
I think the city should be proud of you. Hopefully they are. Because you're setting a pace that I think a lot of people could learn from. Yeah. And I think that it's encouraging, especially if you're a new artist or if you're somebody who's trying to find their way through the entertainment business. Hopefully you're inspired by this story, because literally everything that she did was started with a choice. It was just a choice, right? Like she didn't have to do any of these things. Like she still doesn't. And because of that, because of her work ethic, because of the stuff she's done, like we're super proud to have her over at Platform Collection. You guys are definitely going to be hearing a lot more of her in these coming years. Honestly, that's just to be honest with you. You're going to be hearing about it for coming years. She got seasons on seasons ready to drop on that ass. But you got to go check out the music right now. Go to Bandcamp, right?
Bandcamp, 7Octoberz.
7Octoberz, spelled the way it sounds, by the way, with a Z.
Yeah, so the number 7, and then space, and then Octoberz, but with a Z instead of an S at the end.
And you can Google that, by the way. Most of the content comes up. And if not, you can always go over to Platform Collection. All her stuff's there as well.
Yeah, and then Nightmare. I just updated my website. It's like nightmareonsedgwick.com.
There you go. So. Nightmareonsedgwick.com. Go there for sure. Especially if you're into horror. 7 and I just did a sit down where we talked about the Mothman prophecies, which was super fun. Her show, by the way, has become one of the more fun shows to do in the community, where we got a lot of people lining up to do that show. So, again, grew that within a year, not even a year yet.
Yeah, not even a year yet.
Not even a year yet. So please be encouraged by your own work output, man. It's pretty, I think, 7, you can attest for this, right? It pretty much is directly equal to what you're getting out of this.
Yeah,
right? Like
exactly.
There is really no arguing the amount that you put in and the amount you're getting out is pretty fair from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, I think somebody was like, "Do you even sleep?"
yeah. But
I mean, I'm just organized.
yeah. I mean, there's a way. And like, I'll tell you this: like, Seven is one of those people who dives in to the knowledge about whatever it is that she's working on.
Yeah.
And I've said this many times: there's no way around it, people. There's no way around it.
You got to do the work.
You got to do the work. Sometimes that means reading. Sometimes that means watching. Sometimes that means diving in and getting your hands dirty. But there is no way around it. And let's be honest. You're listening to me right now. You're probably at work or you're doing something you don't want to be doing. If that's the case, you know, like I know, how you feel right after you complete that thing that was really hard. You know how you feel. And you know that feeling is 1,000 times better and overpowering than the feeling of I have work to do. It's way better. So measure it out that way. You know what's going to come. And by the way, it's a sure thing. Anything you complete, it is a sure thing. The satisfaction is going to be there. So if you want to feel happier, if you want to feel lighter, if you want to feel more positive, complete things. It's a super important thing. And especially if you're an artist trying to get into the entertainment business, it's our bread and butter. If you don't have the end product, we don't have anything to sell. We don't have anything to promote. That's just the truth of it. There's no way around it. You could, complain or groan all you want about it, but there is no way around that. And if that part bothers you, I promise you that you should be thinking about doing something else, because there is no other way around. There's no way around that part. You have to do the work. And we're going to be able to watch Seven do that work at a high level for the next few years. So tune in to her life, tune into what she's got going on. Again, 7Octoberz on everything. Follow her on Instagram. In fact, I'll throw that up. And if you guys are listening to this wherever podcasts are found, just know that you guys can always go over to PlatformCollection on YouTube or Instagram and see the video version. You really do get something different. People have told me there's people who like both, right? But I think what I have heard over the past few weeks so far, I don't know if if people feel this about your show too. Mm-hmm. People really like the idea of being able to watch it if they want, and then just take it with them if they want. Like, just put it in their ears and listen to it. Like, the choice is a good thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the choice to listen to it in audio or to watch it is a good thing. Chris Sees the Internet, by the way. That show is a super fun show to do. We got a bunch of great stuff coming up on that. And if you're listening to this when this comes out, you can now listen to Chris Sees the Internet on Spotify and iTunes as well. So it's an audio version as well.
Nice.
I missed that audio version. I love the audio version. It's why I first got into this. But I'm having fun with the video part.
I might have to do that for Nightmare Cinema. I didn't think of that.
Yeah, you should totally do that. Yeah. I know. You know what? One of the things that really got me past wondering if I should do that is I was listening to Gary Vee. Mm-hmm. And noticing that Gary Vee was literally just ripping audio from his videos and placing them up as podcasts because he trusts his audience to be smart enough to know, oh, yeah, this is probably audio from a video. So if he goes like, hey, look at that thing, you're probably not going to see that in the audio, but you don't care. You get it, right? And I think that was the part I wasn't giving the audience credit enough to know. Like, they'll figure it out. They don't care.
Yeah.
Like, most of them, they're just trying to be part. They're just trying to listen to the conversation. They don't care
because people are like, might be at work and they can't watch the video. Yeah.
Yeah. So, guys, follow 7Octoberz. Thank you so much.
Thank you again. And thank you. Shout out to you for like mixing and mastering and then doing the intro beat.
Yes, no doubt.
To the project.
Yes, I produced a beat on there. That's right.
Yes, you did.
This is right. Yes, I produced a beat on there. Yes. And we'll be working more together soon.
For sure.
All right, guys. We'll see you guys next time. PlatformCollection.com is where you'll find us. Stay tuned. We got a bunch of crazy episodes. Hip Hop Eddie, do we have a bunch of crazy episodes coming up?
Yes, we do.
He says we do. If he says we do, then we do. So we'll see you guys next time. And cover your mouth.